How many of you have taken a shot that you wish you could take back? Me too, me too. Some of you guys here have a shot that you still think about. You probably don't talk about it with a lot of people. And if you're like me, you can remember exactly how it happened. You remember every detail of it. For me, I had that shot on this deer specifically. I remember it. This was probably about 10 years ago now. It's not the best picture, but it's a 170-inch mule deer. And long story short, I hunted multiple days, finally found this buck. I finally get into range. I get to 45 yards. I shoot right through his antlers because that's where I was looking. So then I watch him run off. He goes down. I get close to him again. It was 43 yards. I'm confident. I'm calm. I shot right over his back. Not a good feeling, right? You kind of second guess everything in those moments. It's like, is my bow in tune? Is it this? Is it that? You know, the truth is my bow was in tune. I was practicing a lot. I was shooting really well at home. It wasn't the fletchings I was using. It wasn't the broadhead I was using. I was anticipating the shot, and I didn't even realize it. Here's a hard truth for everybody. When you make a bad shot, it's really not you. It's not the gear. It's not the bow that you're shooting. Usually it comes down to how we practiced. We're usually practicing the wrong things. Now, bad shots can happen to anybody, no matter how good you are, no matter how long you've hunted, no matter how much you practice, no matter how confident you are. But our goal as bow hunters, we want to limit our bad shots as much as possible. So I guess here's another question for you guys. Who here would like to build their confidence in their shot, especially in the moment when it counts? Absolutely, 100%. That's exactly what we're going to talk about here. So now let me ask you another question. How many of you have punched the trigger? Absolutely. Yeah. Some of us can leave our hands standing because we punch it all the time, right? And we're just happy with it. But honestly, that's the reason that it cost me this deer. You know, I practiced it so much. I was confident. I went out and still messed it up, not once, but twice. And I think a lot of you probably have a similar story that you can relate to with that. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say something really important. If you guys are shooting with your shot and you are confident in it, I'm not asking you to change it. Keep doing what you're doing. If you're happy with it, there's multiple ways to do everything, right? But I do want to focus on building a shot that performs under pressure so that you can minimize the amount of moments that happen just like this. Now, it's easy for us to get caught up in the wrong things. We like to think about 3-fletch versus 4-fletch, left helical versus right helical, mechanical versus fixed blade, heavy versus light arrow, all these different factors. Yes, they all make a difference, but they do not matter if we don't have the proper foundation set. If we build a house all fancy with kitchen cabinets and nice flooring and everything else, it doesn't matter if we don't have a solid foundation to build it on. It's the exact same thing with archery. It's the exact same thing with our shooting. You know, normally when we're taught originally how to shoot, we're just told very simply, take your pin, go ahead and put that in the middle of the target and shoot. And that works really, really good when we're starting out, right? You put the pin in the middle, you squeeze the trigger. You start out, you're maybe not shooting that great. A few days go by, you start shooting better. Weeks, months, years go by, you start shooting better and better and better. And then all of a sudden, what happens? You draw back, you go to aim, you go to put that pin right on the target, and your pin dips low, it goes up, you hold it to the side. Familiar? Anybody else have that issue? Does that happen to you when you're shooting? Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just the wind. It's how we're practicing. It's how we're shooting. We all got to that point where we could hold pretty steady on the target, but then all of a sudden we'd flinch, we'd come out of our valley, we'd go to shoot the shot, we'd punch the trigger, we'd want the shot to fire, and you know, our brain would say shoot, and our finger wouldn't pull the trigger. So then maybe we heard, you know, such and such, he had these issues, and I was, you know, we've been talking to our buddies about this, and, you know, Billy Bob said, hey, you should try that thumb release. I heard that helped, such and such. He was shooting really good. So you pick up a thumb release, you grab that, you start shooting, and wouldn't you know it, you're able to hold that pin in the middle, you're able to trigger that shot, everything is feeling really good. Maybe you shoot that way for a couple weeks, maybe it's only a couple days, maybe it's only a few hours, or maybe it's just a few shots. And then all of a sudden what happens? You go to hold that pin in the middle and nope. Or you flinch, you jerk, you're starting to anticipate that shot again. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's just how you're practicing that's causing you to do that. So then maybe we even try a hinge. We've heard that, professional archers, they shoot all the time, they use a hinge, they shoot well. Maybe I should go to that. You pick it up, you draw back, you smack yourself in the face, you say, nope, I ain't doing that. That's not fun, or that's not going to be suitable for hunting. So it's really hard to just pick it up and learn it from the get-go and have any kind of success with it. So what do? We go back to our original release, usually a wrist strap, which is fine. We go back to our old ways and we just learn, okay, I'm just going to deal with this. I'm just going to struggle through it. And what we end up doing is we don't tend to practice a lot. We don't like shooting. It's stressful. We can't hold our pin on the middle of the target like that unless we have our finger off of the trigger. And it just makes shooting not fun. We end up shooting better if we practice less. That's because the way we are practicing is making you worse. You're setting yourself up for failure, especially when you get in those pressured moments when deer hunting, when shooting at, closest to the middle with your buddy. You start to aim harder. You start to try to hold that pin steadier in the middle. When you try to aim harder, you anticipate worse because your brain sees that pin trying to hold more solid in the middle. That's when you flinch, that's when you jerk, that's when you miss. Now, it's hard to do this test here because none of you have your bows with you. But when you get home, if you are commanding your shot, draw back and aim at a target with your finger off of the trigger. Just try to hold as steady as you can on the target. It should look something like this over the target. You're not going to sit dead still, but it should stay largely in the white at 20 yards. Okay? Now, your pin's on the middle. It's floating around. Now try to put your finger on the trigger. And what happens? Your sight goes off target. Generally, it's going to go low. If you're a right-handed shooter, it's going to go low right just because of what you can see. Okay? And then you're going to bring your pin back up to the middle, and then boom, you're going to try to shoot. You're going to try to time it. Familiar? Yep. I see a lot of heads nodding along. I've been there, and it's a little frustrating because really as archers, all we want to do is we want to put the pin in the middle, shoot our shot, watch the arrow go where we're looking. It's quite simple. We don't need to complicate it more than that. Yet we still have these issues. We're still flinching, we're still jerking, we're not confident in our shot, and we struggle. So why does that happen? Why does our ability to hold in that middle, and then as soon as we put our finger on the trigger, boom, we dip off target, or maybe we're off the target completely? Why is that happening? It's because when we are in full control of our shot, we have basically taught ourselves that our visual sight alignment is what triggers the shot. Okay, so let's do a quick test while we're here. Just take your thumb, put it right over the middle of that target. What I want you to do, when your thumb's in the middle of the target, everybody blink, but only when you decide to. Everybody blinked immediately. Why? Because the thumb is there, shoot. If you draw back, you know exactly when you're gonna execute. As soon as that pin gets to the target, wham, we shoot. When you're at full draw, especially in a situation like hunting or target archery, or when there's pressure, there's anxiety at full draw. But at the moment that arrow is gone, the anxiety is gone. We want to get that shot off very, very quickly. And so as we do that, we end up holding off the target, we bring our pin to it, wham. We bring our pin to it, wham, or maybe we start from the top, boom. And what happens is when we transfer that into a pressured situation, say we're shooting for $20 at a 3D target at 60 yards, we start to aim harder. And when you aim harder, that's probably when you realize a lot of your misses happen. That's what I realized when I was shooting that way. How does that carry over into hunting? For a lot of you and me, when I shot this way for years, it was like a blur. I mean, it was like as soon as pin hits fur, that shot's going off. Not like I had any control over it. It was more of a hope and a wonder of, will I make a good shot on this critter or not? Not that I can't shoot, not that I didn't build confidence shooting in the backyard or going to different tournaments or 3D shoots. I practiced, I could shoot well, but then you get in those pressured situations, and what I realized was by commanding the shot and knowing exactly when that shot would fire, I'm practicing my own failure because I'm associating the pin hitting the middle with the fire. Now, if we want to be a command shooter, if we want to stick with command shooting, how do we do it accurately and avoid those issues? I'm not here to say command shooting is wrong. It's not wrong. Some of the best archers in the world shoot that way, but only a few. And here's the thing, the truth is that if you know when that bow is going to go off, you will always have some kind of anticipation issue, always, because of the psychological of what is happening when you're commanding the shot. When you're commanding the shot, that pin, as soon as it hits the middle, boom, it's done. So if you look at some of the best archers in the world that command their shot in tournament shooting, Kyle Douglas is one, Tim Gillingham is one, there's a few different other guys that shoot insanely well with it. What do they do to shoot accurately as a command shooter? You'll notice, number one, they have a ton of stabilizer weight on their bow. They shoot with a really high let-off, and that takes a lot to move that pin. Essentially what they're doing is they're making their bow so that that pin does not move fast at all. If you're going to be a command shooter, you cannot draw back and hold that pin on the middle without having anxiety in your shot. You have to literally hold off of the target, off of what you want to hit, and bring your pin to it. And the goal is not to go like this and shoot. The goal is to bring it to it as slow as possible, especially when you get close. And I'm looking at the middle, and boom. It's a very slow, controlled movement. Very difficult to do, and only a few people have the personality type that is actually able to go through their shot and do that accurately. So if we decide to keep shooting this way, that's fine. But we are still going to have, again, the days where we can shoot really, really well, and then the days where we are not shooting good at all. You'll start anticipating it even when the pin starts to get close to the middle. So like I said, you want to move that pin really slow. You have a lot of weight on your bow. You move it very slow to the middle. As soon as you start getting close, especially in pressure, you can start to build that anticipation again. It just compounds on itself. It gets worse and worse. It makes shooting not fun, not enjoyable. And for some of us, it means that we might not even be able to get our whole sight housing on our bow to actually sit on the target face at all. We're holding completely off the target. We're dropping down into it and hitting the trigger. We're holding low, bringing it up to it, hitting the trigger. And it's not a fun way to shoot. It probably looks like a lot what I compared about during hunting, where your pin, you bring it up to fur, and as soon as it hits fur, everything kind of goes black. You bring it up really fast, and sometimes that shot goes really good. And sometimes it's like, man, what just happened? I totally messed that up. I've been there more times than I can count, but that mule deer was what changed it for me. I realized there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a way that I can hold my pin on the middle, I can execute, and I don't have the anxiety in the shot that I do when you're in control of it. We don't have to wonder. We don't want the feeling of wonder when a deer of a lifetime is coming in. We don't want to have to think, man, I hope I can make this shot count. We want to have the confidence to know, man, if that buck gives me a shot, I know exactly where that arrow is going to go. What if I told you by changing one thing, you could hold your pin over the middle and not have that same anxiety? No, we're not holding it dead center in the middle of the X, but we're able to hold it on the white of our target or on the middle of our target without the yips, without coming out of our valley, without punching the trigger, without manipulating the shot and having that anxiety. What if there was a way to do that? You could do that while still remaining in control of your shot. Now, in order to do this, we've kind of got to take a step back from how we were originally shooting. We have to remap in our brain how that shot happens so that we're not associating that pin hitting that middle with the execution. We want to be able to hold that pin over the middle and feel like we're not in a rush, but that we're still in control to fire the shot. The old way was visual. The old way was pin middle, shoot. The new way is we want our pin in the middle and we want to work through our shot. The goal with it is slow, controlled, consistent pressure on your release until you get the execution. The goal with it is a surprise shot. When people hear surprise shot, they think, that's no way I could do that. Number one, I can't hold steady enough. Number two, there's no way that's going to work in hunting. Not a chance. And I understand the thought behind that, but I say when you learn to do this right, you remain in more control, and you can narrow down that window of your shot to be within 1 second of having that bow fire. And if you're in that kind of control, if you need more than 1 second when you're hunting to get a shot off, you're in trouble. Or if you need less than that, you're in trouble. Like, what if you could draw back on an animal and you could put that pin in the middle and it's floating, and yeah, we're not holding steady, but it's always returning back to what we're looking at, and boom, it fires and it goes right to where we're looking because that pin is always going to it. When you learn to do this correctly, it literally is that simple. You're holding the pin on the middle, and that shot breaks in a window of when you want it to, just not exactly when you want it to. Because again, that anticipation is linked to us commanding that shot, forcing that shot to happen. When you do it with a surprise, you don't know the exact millisecond that the bow is going to go off, but you know within a second or two of when it will. What if instead of holding off the target, dragging up to it, wham, shoot, or bringing down from the top, the pin gets close, shoot. What if you could draw back, your pin floats over the middle, and maybe your pin breaks right here, but the arrow still lands in the middle? What if you could do that? Would that not make shooting more enjoyable? It takes the anxiety out of your shot. It makes it more fun. And as you practice that way, it builds confidence in your shot. You are making yourself better as you practice instead of making yourself worse. When you know when the bow is going to fire and you're practicing that timing of getting that pin to the middle, that can be making your shot worse. When you are practicing with your pin in the middle and you don't know exactly when it will fire, you are practicing more confidence in your shot. So all of a sudden, we're at 20 yards, and man, I can float my pin over the middle. It's not dead solid, but it's on it. I can execute a good surprise shot every single time. You've got that confidence, you're feeling good. What does this look like when you go to Halsey and you go to the NBA Jamboree and you want to shoot the 3D shoot? Before, what did it look like? Say that this elk target is on the Nebraska range and you pop up over that hill and there's the elk down there at 45 yards. This is what your shot might have looked like before. You might have started up here. It's like, okay, your 40 pin, you're getting lower, and boom. And sometimes it lands good and sometimes it does not, right? What does your sight look like now when you're shooting, once you've trained yourself to shoot with this controlled surprise shot? Again, surprise being in a very small window that you are in control of. You draw back, and as soon as you look through the peep sight, boom, pin is floating over those vitals. It's not sitting dead still, it never will, but it's right there. You're pulling through your shot, you're squeezing, boom. It goes off without you realizing it, but that pin and that arrow the whole time was in alignment with what you wanted to hit. Wouldn't that be a good feeling? It's an awesome feeling. And it takes a lot of work and discipline to get there, but it is 100% worth it if you enjoy archery, if you enjoy shooting, if you struggle with the current way that you're shooting. Now, how does this apply to hunting, right? Because many of us in here, we don't just enjoy archery, we enjoy bow hunting. We want to be confident in our shooting when we're shooting at a buck of a lifetime, a bull like this, a turkey, whatever it might be. If you commit to this process, it largely becomes subconscious. This process becomes subconscious to the point where when there's a big buck coming in, I'm not thinking about, oh, I hope I have my fingers right, or man, I hope I can get this shot off in time. No, I'm thinking about where is this deer gonna stop? Where's my shot gonna be? What spot am I gonna pick out on this deer to aim at? And I know I'll be able to make the shot if I get the opportunity. So if that buck is coming in and you see him coming ahead and you're shooting with your whatever release, if you've got a trigger on it, and you know that, oh my gosh, like I'm nervous, I'm excited, I'm gonna have to punch this shot to get it off. If you think that ahead of time, you're gonna go right back to where you were in your brain when you go to draw back. You'll draw back, you'll hold low on that deer, you'll hold high on the deer, and as soon as that pin hits fur, you're punching the trigger. If you commit to what you learned, to what you practiced, to what you proved you could do, because you spent that time shooting and building confidence, hitting the middle, holding over the middle, your shot could look something like this. So if you ask the question, is this effective for hunting? I want to show you a real world example of it. This is shot with a resistance release, meaning there is no trigger, there is no way to force the shot. It is a tension release, meaning you have a safety to draw, you let off the safety, and it's a slow controlled pull until it fires. And again, when you learn this correctly, you can get it to fire within a second, even if you're in a stressful situation. Pretty impressive, right? You know, I wasn't the hunter in that situation, and I can tell you his pin was not sitting dead still when he drew back, but he was holding over the vitals that entire time. There was no anticipation. There was no holding low, bringing it up. There was no forcing that shot into play. His pin is dancing over the vitals. He lets off the safety. It's a slow pull. Boom, it fires. He's in control, and the shot was perfect, right? Now, it's easy to see that and think there is no way that I could ever do that. There's no way that I could learn a surprise shot and then transfer that to a hunting situation like this. I can't imagine being able to shoot a surprise shot. My pin movement is this big at 20 yards, right? Let me show you where Micah came from just 5 years before this happened.
My focus wasn't exactly where it needed to be. Kind of roughly put my pins kind of where they needed to be, and I would just let it rip and made really good shots, and I never really wounded anything, never really missed any animals doing that. So I was getting positive feedback. The biggest thing that I did not like about my shot sequence when hunting was rushing the shot. As soon as that pin or that part of the sight housing was on that animal, man, that arrow was gone. I would just let it go. There was no conscious execution of the release and execution of putting that pin exactly where it needed to be. I noticed more and more on the range, behold low and pull up and let it rip, jerk a little bit. I was shooting really good groups doing that sort of thing, which again, it was giving me positive feedback. So I really didn't know there was a huge issue. It was kind of more stressful than anything, but it wasn't very fun shooting a bow. So the years go by. At this point, I'm 10 years into archery. It's 2020. I was killing animals with what I was using, so I didn't think there was a better way really, until a turkey hunt that Josh and I did in western Nebraska in 2020. We found this bird and we ended up going down in this really cool little creek bottom, kind of a coulee down there, built this super awesome blind, put the decoys out in front, and sure enough, this tom comes straight in. And I was watching this animal just a little bit too much. He was just so pretty, this beautiful Miriam's, in the decoys. I just wanted to get a little bit of cool footage more than anything, so I didn't take the first shot, and that was a huge mistake. 45 seconds, maybe a minute or so into this bird kind of interacting with the decoys, I decided to take the shot. I missed him. I completely missed the bird, and I didn't really realize what happened until we looked back on the footage. I punched that trigger so bad, and you can see it on my face. I think I killed the animal. I'm excited because I got a Miriam's in the bag, and then the instant disappointment of the miss. Not only embarrassing for me because I should have shot him sooner and I should have made a better shot on such an easy shot. It was kind of a downer because we traveled 9 hours to get to this spot out west, found this area and found these birds and made this blind and the whole thing, and then I just totally screwed it up. And it was at that point, I probably hit one of the lowest moments as a bow hunter, and I just completely screwed up the whole thing by yanking that trigger and making a bad shot and missing the animal completely. For weeks after that, maybe even months, I was just kind of sick to my stomach about this can't be the right way to do it. There has to be a better way than just punching that trigger and target panic and letting it rip and missing an animal. It was pretty heartbreaking. It was more than just missing an animal.
We've all been there, right? And it's not fun, and some of us have been through it more times than we care to admit or wish that we have. You can kind of see what it looks like to shoot when you have control over your shot and you achieve a surprise release. You can kind of see based on how I showed it with the visual with the laser, what your pin could look like over the middle of that target without having that anxiety of, I need to flinch, I need to get this shot off, or that blur of when an animal comes in. The first time that I can remember after that mule deer, the next animal that I shot, I committed to myself to a process to learn this surprise execution. And the first shot I took on an animal, it was so vivid. I remember every second of it. I remember drawing back. I remember exactly how the legs were positioned. I remember picking a spot behind the shoulder. The pin would dance over it. It was not sitting dead still. It never does. But able to pull through that shot and watch that arrow go exactly where I was looking was a feeling like none other. It was amazing. And every other animal I had killed before that, which was quite a few by commanding the shot, was largely a blur. It happened very fast, and I never really felt like I was in control. So anybody that does want to kind of go through this process and take a leap of what it looks like to learn the surprise shot, it is a very difficult thing to do on your own. I am more than happy to help you with it if it's something you want to commit to, if it's something you want to decide to do. It is a commitment. It is a jump. There is no trying this out for a couple days. You do it if you commit for a month time, that can be plenty to build that confidence, to completely transition your shooting, to take that anxiety out of your shot and start building confidence into your shot instead of taking it out of it. I know it's kind of a lot of information. Some of you already shoot this way. Some of you shoot very well this way. Some of you might have heard this before years and years ago and thought, this contradicts everything I can think of. I came from shooting fingers on a compound. There's no way I could shoot like this. And I just want to open it up to anybody that has questions on anything. It could be as it relates to execution and shooting. It could be anything related to bow hunting, whatever questions that you guys have.
So I'm a complete basket case until I did this. Now, come to full draw, I want to take that safety off. Both of those. Now,
turn up your weight. Because anytime you practice when you're commanding the shot, it doesn't matter what release you're using. Anytime you practice commanding that shot, like that is making us worse, right? We're practicing our failure when we know it can fire. Okay, so if we learned the release, the resistance release, to the point where we draw back, aim, pin on the middle, let off the safety, fire, like you're describing. Now if we continue to shoot that way, oh crap, we're back where we were, right? It's like, this isn't fun, okay? So what do we need to do? You either need to make your release heavier, right? So when you let off the safety, you don't do that. Or you need to not pull as hard against your back wall. You need to not preload as much, right? Because it's just your body becoming efficient to your shot. Turn your poundage up. Turn your weight up on your resistance. Absolutely. So when I shoot a resistance, it functions based off of how hard you're pulling against the back wall. My holding weight is about 14 pounds on my bow. I think it's best when I shoot target to have the resistance about 18.5 pounds for me. That's only 4.5 pounds over holding weight. When I get on an animal and I let off the safety at 18.5 pounds, it's going to go too. But if I have it at 20 or 21, it takes just a little bit more. Why? We get that adrenaline in our body. We're not going to make adrenaline go away. You're always going to have it shooting at an animal or shooting under pressure. So you have to transition that into, okay, I'm going to use that adrenaline to my advantage. I'm going to pull a little bit smoother through it. I'm going to pull a little bit harder, and then it's going to fire. And you'll practice that way leading up to season. You don't necessarily have to practice with it the whole time. But with that, if it only happened on animals, how many animals are you shooting a year? You might only be shooting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, call it. You're not going to get worse by having a slip up on an animal in that instance. Because if you're shooting a resistance on an animal and you draw back and your pin's on the target, your thumb should not come off that safety unless your pin is over where you want to aim. So if it did fire that way, that's okay, because where'd the arrow go? Right where your pin was, right? Unless you knew it was going to fire when you let off the safety. If you know when it's going to fire, that's where the problems start to go back from. But in a hunting environment, that's a long way to answer your question. In a hunting environment, have your resistance release set heavier. Jim is a good example of going through this process. He jumped in, went to a resistance release, which is probably the best way to learn it, but also the most disciplined way to learn it, because a resistance release is hard to shoot. You can't just pick it up and start shooting it. And I mean, his form is fantastic now. Jim, how long did it take you to be confident in that release when you initially learned it?
A couple months.
Couple months.
I didn't do anything for a month. I was shooting hail.
Yep.
3 feet away.
And how does your shot feel now compared to what it felt before that?
You can actually hit and shoot. You can actually aim and hit and shoot. It's incredible.
For sure.
Does that work when you're using fingers too, if you gotta do these?
Yeah, so there's different ways to do it when shooting fingers. I'm not a finger shooter. I'm not a traditional shooter. But like, think of recurves with a clicker. Okay, the clicker, it functions the same way on a clicker. So like, you draw back, you're aiming, you're pulling, you're expanding. You don't know when it's going to click, right? But you've trained yourself, as soon as it clicks, fire. So people that shoot fingers on, say, a Genesis, people that shoot fingers on a recurve without a clicker, a lot of what people do is they do some kind of trick with their finger, or maybe it's a trick with their nose. It's some kind of physical feeling where as soon as it happens, it's acting as a clicker. So like on the grip, say there's a ledge on the Genesis, on the grip, they push their front finger on the front, they draw back, they're aiming at the target, they're squeezing that index finger. You're squeezing the finger until it slips off, and as soon as the finger slips off, shoot. Or maybe it's shooting a recurve and it's like you're hunting with it, you draw back, you're here at your anchor, you're aiming, and then as soon as you pull and you feel that string hit your nose, as soon as it hits your nose, shoot. That's not a good way to shoot with the release with a compound, but when you're shooting with fingers, that's the only option you have. But that's how you would use the same principles with it. That's why you see Olympic archers shooting recurve with a clicker. That's why you see some of the best guys shooting trad only in Vegas. That's how they'll shoot. Watch their front hand. Watch their finger. They'll be squeezing their finger. It'll slip off the edge of their grip. Boom, they'll fire. That's what they're doing. It's the same thing. It's the same surprise. They've changed the shot so that the surprise is associated with the click or with that movement. So they don't know when that movement's going to happen because it's a slow build till it does. But then they practiced from blank bailing that when that happens, the shot breaks. Good question. And again, I'm not trying to change how anybody shoots. I mean, everybody, especially with archery, it's like you're confident in whatever way it is that you're shooting. But I've seen how many lives it's helped and changed, and I've seen it take people that have shot for so many years and all of a sudden can't hold their pins even close to being on the target, to all of a sudden loving archery again and having confidence when they shoot. And all of a sudden there's not a worry when that antelope's coming into the tank at 10 yards of, oh my gosh, I hope I can hit this. Now it's, oh man, I hope he gives me a shot. Because you know what's going to happen. You're going to put it right where you want it to be.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. if you watched all the way through this seminar, I just want to say thank you for sitting through it. Hopefully it helped you get a better idea of understanding what actually happens when your shot breaks down. And the next natural step is learning not only what to do to fix it, but how to do it and how to implement it. That is exactly what I'm building with the shot execution system. And if you're not already on the list, get signed up. The link is in the description below. If you're in and you've been receiving the emails, then don't have to worry about it. But if you want to get on the list, if you want to build a shot that you can trust, sign up at the link in the description or just comment system below and I'll be sure to send you the link.